and welcome back to Hollow Knight. Episode 3, getting underway. And boy, oh boy, this is starting out to be a not-so-warm welcome to Hallownest's capital city. We had just gained access to it at the end of last episode. And there is nothing but hostiles. And look at this place. Just rain, it's drab, it's blue, it's dark. And nothing but aggressive, hostile inhabitants. Okay, so there's a clue. None shall enter, none shall leave. Why were the gates sealed? All part of the ongoing mystery of this lost civilization of Hallownest and the story of the Hollow Knight.
Nah, me no bis.
So Quarrel, as expected, has also made his way here. And he calmly sits on the bench and reflects on the nature of the capital's mystery. All right, so the City of Tears. We have a name to go with our new area. And it's quite an appropriate name indeed, given all this rain and tragic loss of civilization and mystery, etc. Now, on a side note, I just love the sound effects of the footsteps in the rain. It's like they're landing in puddles. You hear that? Okay, so another Hallownest seal. Recall that's a relic that we can trade for Geo once we find the appropriate vendor. All right, big time and a big bug. That's called a heavy sentry. The smaller version of those guys is called just a husk sentry. And the ones that fly around, those are called winged sentries.
Gala negosa tros. Hakana sagamos.
Okay, so another mysterious appearance by Hornet, and she seems to be very connected to Hallownest and its history and its perpetuation, as she termed it, as well as this kind of strange, very bleak memorial to the Hollow Knight, which speaks of its sacrifice as a means to the city's perpetuation. So, some more clues to the mystery.
Vår son Gian. Velmi Ardred.
All right, so at long last, the relic vendor.
Velmi Ardred. Velmi Ardred. Velmi Ardred. Velmi Ardred. Kachael Liasoki. Velmi Ardred. Kachael Liasoki. Helma Delka.
Okay, so that's the relic vendor. We'll be back by here several times throughout the playthrough to sell off our relics, mostly before we're about to spend a lot of money. Okay, I know I killed that guy pretty quickly. You didn't get to see all his moves, but that was actually a new type called a lance sentry. They carry a lance and they will throw it at you in addition to, flying around and kind of charging you joust style with their lance. So there you got to see a little bit more of a lance sentry, in addition to another bellfly, those exploding bird type flies that are, no fun at all.
Grolem, Zono.
All right, so we got the map from Cornifer for the City of Tears, and we're going to have a map break in just a second once I get away from his humming. First, I decide to recharm at this bench. I go with Shaman Stone and Soul Catcher, so we can do a lot of damage with spells and gain a lot of soul with our attacks. All right, map break time, Devatron, City of Tears. So we don't have the compass on. You can't see where we are. I'll just tell you right here. I didn't equip the compass because we're going to a pretty tough area, and I needed as much combat charming as I could. So that's why I have Shaman Stone and Soul Catcher, and I don't have Gathering Swarm to help us get, collect the geo, and I don't have the compass. But at any rate, this is where we are. This is the bench we just rested at, and right here is where we bought the map from Cornifer. So we entered the City of Tears from the Fungal Waste. This is where we started the episode. We headed through here and down. This first bench is where Quirrell was. He was kind of reflecting on the mystery of the city and watching the rain. Then we went down and up and over this way, and then eventually over to this open area where there is the monument to the Hollow Knight, and we spoke with Hornet. After that, we came back in and up, and then this is where we found the relic vendor, and then we came right back up and then made our way through this section however we did, and then eventually up to the bench in Cornifer. So this is where we're at. Moving forward, we're going to be heading this way and up into this area over here that isn't mapped yet. It's called the Soul Sanctum, Devatron, and it's big time. Other than that, we can tell from Cornifer and what he has put over here that there's a bench and a stagway station up this way. So before too long, we'll want to come up here and unlock that so that we can get back and forth to and from the City of Tears, to and from all the other places we've been, like Green Path and Dirtmouth and Forgotten Crossroads, etc., without having to go through all the trouble we did to get here in the last episode. Okay? So welcome to the Soul Sanctum, Devatron. Listen to this pipe organ just jamming away. I love this place. Okay, so you've seen a few of those now. Those are called Soul Twisters. They can blink around and they shoot a fireball at you. They're really annoying, pretty tough enemies. And they're kind of interesting. They're like a magic user bug. And those little slimy blobs, those are just called mistakes. They might also be called a folly. There's a flying version, and I can't remember which one is the mistake and which one is the folly, but you get the idea. They're kind of like these evil bug sorcerers' failed experiments, you know. Combat-wise, there's nothing to them, though. Okay, nice fight there. Those guys are called Soul Warriors, seeing as how they're up here guarding the Soul Sanctum. And they can be pretty nasty, but once you figure out all their moves, they're not too bad. Okay, so I didn't have to come down this way, but I did want to flip that lever in case I ever want to come back this way. The door is now open. So on a general combat note, you may have noticed sometimes I'll hit something with a spell and then one more time with the nail and it's dead, just for example. But then you'll notice I'll hit the exact same type of enemy with a spell, but then it takes like 2 or 3 more hits with the nail for it to die. So what gives? You know, they're the same enemy. Why does it take more hits sometimes than others? The reason is the damage tables in this game employ a certain amount of randomness, you know, like your nail and your spells will hit within a range of damage, say 10 to 15. And then it's kind of like a die roll, like in Dungeons and Dragons, etc., etc. So that's why that is. Okay, so a hidden charm up here, and this is a good one. It's called Spell Twister, and what it does is it reduces the cost of soul required in order to cast spells. and it only costs 2 notches. So a really good charm, and one that I'm going to be interested in because I tend to cast a lot of spells. Now, the only exception is oftentimes I don't have enough notches to use it and Soul Catcher, the one that increases the amount of soul that I get when I hit things with the nail. So I often have to choose one or the other. But thankfully, much later in the game, we end up with enough notches so that we can use both simultaneously. Oh yeah. Big time, Devatron. Our second spell, the Desolate Dive. Maybe the best spell in the game. I'm not sure. But I'll talk more about it later. And it's very useful because lots of times there are parts in the world where the ground is kind of shaky, and you need to cast that spell in order to break through and get at secret areas. And you'll see me do it just right up here. You hear that? Bam, see? So a pretty tough boss fight, the Soul Master. That's one similar to Hornet, where until you know what you're doing and figure it out, you're going to be spending lots of time trying to get it right. As for these sort of pseudo journal entries, we saw Record Abba earlier, and then we just saw Record Senda. They kind of hint at the idea of researching immortality that the Soul Master and the Soul Sanctum were working on. They basically developed the kind of magery involved in manipulating soul in order to heal. So you can see here and throughout other areas of the Soul Sanctum just piles and piles of dead bug bodies and husks and whatnot. So presumably the Soul Sanctum was, engaged in just an awful lot of experimenting, which may in fact be pretty questionable. Okay, always good to rescue more grubs, and with that, our work here is done. Now, the primary intention in coming to the Soul Sanctum was to get the spell, Desolate Dive. So let me tell you a little bit more about it. So in addition to knocking through loose spots in the ground and getting at secret areas, as an attack, it's incredibly powerful. It does damage initially when it hits whatever's in its way on the way down. Then it also splashes out to either side, so it does a little bit of area damage. And then later, once it's upgraded, there's actually a third attack that kind of splashes back up vertically and will hit things that are above you. So it does a lot of damage in a lot of different directions. But it even gets better. When you impact the ground, it turns you invulnerable for about a second. And it's just long enough that if you have enough soul and you just chain cast the spell, Desolate Dive, Desolate Dive, Desolate Dive, what will happen is you'll just stay invulnerable the whole time. So you can go right into a pack of enemies and just keep casting it over and over again and not take any damage. Alright, probably not necessary, but I opened the map, so let's do a quick map break. We got our compass back equipped, so you can see our little bug hero's face. That's where we are on the map. And you can see also that Soul Sanctum has now been added to the map. It's not important to draw the line exactly how we went, whatever. It's just this is the Soul Sanctum. We just did it. All we're really going to do now is head this way through this unexplored area, see what all this is about, and then get up over here and unlock the Stagway and the bench. And then after that, we're going to head this way and see what's over here and what's going on with this. Just sort of a edge that looks like it can be explored. So we're going to explore it, Big Devatron.
No, mi chiaro.
All right, so Zote the Mighty. Another appearance from him, and he's as delusional and malcontent as ever. So we'll just leave him to his own little world. Okay, so a simple key. This is important. I don't know if you remember, but when we were first here and we were heading down to the Hollow Knight Memorial, we passed a little latchway, and there was a keyhole, and we didn't have a key, so we just had to leave it for now. But that's one thing that simple key can open. Now, there's another simple key for sale at Sly's shop, and there are obviously some other doors out there in the world that simple keys can open, but for now, just we're going to use the one we found right there to open that latch. That'll get us down somewhere below the City of Tears. Okay, as promised, the bench and the stagway. I'm not going to do a map break, but I just did open the map to show you. And I didn't call the stag because, if you recall, the plan is to head to the left and explore that edge that looks like it needs exploring. Well, that was big time. Just a massive elevator taking us up from the City of Tears. And it looks like we might be back in the Forgotten Crossroads, just judging from the kind of look of the area. But I don't know. We'll see. Okay, what that is called a vessel fragment, and it's a very similar mechanic to the mask shards. Recall, if you get 4 mask shards, you get an extra life. Well, if you get 3 vessel fragments, they form a full vessel, and it grants you bonus soul. So, just like the mask shards, those are items that we definitely want to get, and sometimes they're for sale, sometimes you find them in the world, etc., etc. Okay, this should look familiar to you, and it is indeed the Forgotten Crossroads. We just came to that screen from a direction we'd never been before, and I had never gone down there previously because I knew it would be a dead end until we had successfully made it to the City of Tears and taken the elevator up. So that's where we ended up, and now we're taking the stag back to the Dirt Mouth, and we're going to do some shopping.
YOLO no to go with.
Okay, so our second mass shard, and what we really are interested in most is this guy, the Lumafly Lantern. What it does is it kind of brightens up dark areas. I didn't bother showing them to you because it wasn't in the master plan, but there are areas you can go to that are too dark and you actually can't see where you're going. So we need that lantern in order to go through them.
Papanada.
Okay, and over at Azelda's, we're just going to buy up all the map pins. They're not really necessary. Some of the things like their hot springs, we haven't even been to one yet. But I like to have all the pins. It's a little OCD, but I like to have them all so that whenever we look at the map, it has all the areas of interest properly notated. Now here is the inventory screen. I've never actually just stopped here and showed it to you. It shows us all the items we've collected so far, the Mothwing Cloak for Dash, the Mantis Claw, the Lumafly Lantern we just bought, the key, etc. Our relics are down at the bottom, our spells. So it's a pretty informative pane, and as we get upgrades and more stuff, it'll be reflected there. And of course, the beautiful map, all updated now with our new pins. I'm not going to do a map break at this point. I'm just kind of giving you a nice scan of our freshly updated map with all the proper pins in their place. And look how quickly the world just expands, you know. We're only into episode 3, but we've already, come a long way and explored quite a bit. So notice how dim it is here. This is one of those areas where if you didn't have the Lumafly Lantern, you wouldn't be able to see where you're going. You can still enter and still walk around, and there are players that are just so good at the game that they don't need the lantern. They can do it in the dark, literally. But this is why we got it, because we were going to be heading to this new area to the right, And if we didn't have that Lumifly lantern, we would be completely in the dark at this point. Okay, so the Crystal Peak, the new area, and some new critters. Those big guys are called shard mites. And if you hit them on their backs or from behind, they're pretty much invulnerable to melee attacks. But they're pretty weak to spells. So if you have the soul, you want to use it on those guys. Okay, so some pickaxe-wielding husks. Those are called husk miners. And evidently there is a lot of mining going on in the Crystal Peak. Okay, so some pink laser shooting crawlies. I mean, what in the world? What these guys are called are crystal crawlers, okay? And they're actually invulnerable to attack except spells. You can kill them with spells, but not melee.
Make him no kuchin.
Okay, so we got our map. I am opening it here, but we entered from the left and then went up. It's, nothing to really do a map break for. But once we go through it more and can kind of connect it to the rest of the world, then I'll go ahead and do a proper map break. So those smaller crawlers right there that kind of stick out their shards when they get close to you, those are called Glimbacks. Okay, they're like the shard mites, but much smaller. And when they have their crystals sticking out, they're invulnerable to melee attack. So you kind of have to jump up and surprise them, and whack them really quick. If you want to hit them with melee, you can always hit them with spells. But once they know you're there, they're going to, stick their crystals out, kind of like a porcupine, and then you're not going to be able to damage them. Okay, right here is an important item, the shopkeeper's key, and as you can probably guess, it belongs to Sly. So we'll take it back to him and talk with him about it later. All right, a close call with the Crystal Guardian Devatron. Big time. And you may have noticed he kind of got away. He jumped up and went up into the mountain somewhere above. So we'll have to pay him a visit again once we're able to access wherever he went away to. As for the strategy there, you can see I was basically using chain desolate dive, to kind of exploit that moment of invulnerability.
Goa, 奴都来了 Mac。
Okay, a new area wouldn't be a new area unless it had coral standing around and kind of, musing on the environment or the history or whatever. Not that I'm complaining. I like coral and I like finding him and hearing what he has to say. Okay, right there you may have heard and kind of seen that little piece of shaky ground. That means you can cast Desolate Dive there and get at a hidden area. Problem is I didn't have any soul, so I have to come down here, attack a few things, build up some soul, and then I'm able to go back to it and cast the spell and explore. Okay, so a new critter, a flying bug. Those are called crystal hunters. And they didn't do it that time, but they will shoot you with crystals. And that big pile of gold blob that I attacked, that is called a blugsack. B-L-U-G-G-S-A-C. And what it rewarded me with once I destroyed it is called a rancid egg. Now, rancid eggs, they're essentially a form of currency. You can turn them into this one NPC, but it involves the death mechanic, and it's kind of hard to explain, so I'll save that for another time. So there's a better indication of just how difficult the crystal hunters are. Not only do they shoot crystals at you, so they have a ranged attack, but if it misses you, it lands in the ground and leaves like a big crystal bush that will also, do damage to you and take lives. So those guys are just not fun at all. And they take a lot of hits. I think 5 hits with the nail right now for me. Or 1 hit with the nail and 1 hit with a spell. Oh, yeah. Big time Devatron, the Super Dash. Look at this thing go. So yeah, this is a platforming ability similar to Dash and Mantis Claw. And we're going to put it to use right here. Bam, to save this grub. So slowly but surely, our arsenal of platforming abilities is expanding. Again, we have Dash, Mantis Claw, and now Crystal Heart, which is really just Super Dash. And it'll come in very handy. I mean, it's just one of the, core platforming abilities, and it's one of the main reasons to come to Crystal Peak. All right, the dreaded conveyor belt production line smashing block obstacle. Those things are so annoying, and I just have so much trouble timing them, and I get really nervous. So unfortunately, there are some even harder puzzles like those at the bottom of this room, so stay tuned. Okay, so not too bad. I think we took damage once, but we got through it pretty well. And that took me a lot of practice, actually. I'm not one of these people that can time those movements and execute them really precisely, so those types of puzzles give me trouble, and it took me a lot of preparation in order to get through those. Okay, now let's do a map break since we've done a whole lot more and there's more to talk about. We entered from Forgotten Crossroads, just basically came across and went up. We stopped right here to buy the map from Cornifer. Notice it looks like there's stuff to do this way, and now that we have Super Dash, we'll be able to dash across all those crystal spikes and get to it. But again, that'll come later. After Cornifer, we went up here and then unlocked this bench, and this is where we fought the Crystal Guardian. Now remember, after we defeated him, he kind of escaped up here somewhere. So presumably, see this little pathway up right here? It looks like it's open and can be explored. We're going to need some more platforming abilities to get up there later, but there's going to be a room up here, and we'll have to confront the Crystal Guardian again, okay? As for what we did, we went back in and up right here. We met Quarrel, spoke to him briefly, and then headed over this way. Then we went down and did a series of things, but most important, we worked our way through this platforming puzzle to get the Crystal Heart, and we got Super Dash. So that was big time. And then we came over here, and in here we rescued a grub in one of those smashing obstacle puzzles, and then we came down and did some more smashing obstacle puzzles in this area, and finally freed another grub right here. And then we just kind of, made our way down to the bench in order to rest right here. So moving forward, let me get rid of all this. Moving forward, we're actually going to backtrack back up here and then head over this way. Now there is a connector room here, but it's not interesting. There's nothing really of note. So I may come back and fill that in later. I may not, but I just don't want you to worry about it. What is really important is the path to the right this way. So we're going to go over here and explore all this and see where that leads us. So as we dash over to this new area and enter this kind of spooky chamber, it should remind you of the ancestral mound. It looks kind of shamanic, and in fact this place is called the crystallized mound. And similar to the ancestral mound where we got our first spell, this place is going to revolve around the acquisition, not of a spell, but a spell upgrade. Okay, big time, Devatron. Descending Dark. So what this is it's just Desolate Dive, but it does way more damage, and it adds an additional attack that shoots up after you hit the ground. So it's an upgrade to that spell. And all the spells in the game, except Heal, all the spells have an upgrade. So we are fully upgraded on our Desolate Dive spell with the Descending Dark. And speaking of descending, Devatron, look at this drop. Oh, it appears we've fallen into a graveyard, Devatron. What kind of spooky new area have we stumbled into now? We'll find out next time in the next episode of Hollow Knight.